Welcome to the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show with celebrity nutrition expert, fitness Hall of Famer, and four-time New York Times bestselling author, JJ Virgin. JJ is a warrior mom whose knowledge and expertise have helped change hundreds of thousands of lives with over 3.5 million podcast downloads and appearances on Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, The Today Show, Rachel Ray, Larry King Live.
Whoa. This show is about you, not about me. I want to help you find practical, real-world ways to dial in your health and mindset so you can finally lose that weight and feel strong and energized. Stop settling for less than your personal best. It's time to find out how to look and feel better than ever. And I'll be right here with you the whole way. Wine. It is one of the biggest questions I get asked about. Can I drink wine? What kind of wine should I drink? How much wine should I drink? When should I drink? And I have the perfect person for you. One of my most favorite people on the planet is joining us today to talk about wine. I was fortunate a couple years ago to meet him at an event and to try his wines out. Now, prior to that, I grew up right outside of Napa Valley, and I used to skip out on school. I admit it. Okay, when I was a senior in high school, underage. Yep, there it is. Out for everyone to know. But back then they didn't card in Napa, nor did they charge. So we'd skip school and go wine tasting. And I grew up thinking that all these very, very expensive, big Napa Valley cabs were just what you drink. And then I met Todd White, the founder of Dry Farm Wines. And this is a guy who's been in the wine business for 15 years and has dedicated his life to educating and helping people make better choices, not just around wine, but also about food and nutrition. He founded Dry Farm Wines, and you are going to flip out when you hear about this, who he is, what his deep knowledge about the wine industry and wines, and what you need to know about how much you should be drinking and drinking for your health, for longevity and vitality. So he's going to share with you how you can drink and be healthy, what you should be drinking, what the big challenges are with the wine industry and pretty much all of the wine in the United States. You're going to be actually shocked by some of the stuff you heard. I've talked to him on a variety of occasions, and I still was sitting here jaw dropped as I was listening to this interview. You'll probably never want to go back to your old wines again. In fact, I'm looking at how to get the rest of them out of my wine case. I've transitioned completely over to Dry Farm Wines. I actually take them with me whenever we go to a restaurant now and just pay the corkage. And you're going to find out why during this talk. So if you've been wondering, can I drink? And if so, what should I be drinking? We've got the answers for you today with my buddy Todd, who is the founder of Dry Farm Wines. He's also got a crazy deal for you where you can get your first bottle for a penny. All righty, Todd White, welcome to the show. One of my most favorite human beings on the planet.
JJ, I'm happy to be here and got lots of great things to share with your audience.
Oh my gosh, they want to know about this. Like every time I go on Instagram or Facebook Live, it's like, can I drink wine? What do I drink? And so I just couldn't be more thrilled. And just for everybody listening, I have another company called Mindshare where we get together all the top health experts, influencers, doctors, 500 plus of us. And Todd, how many bottles of Dry Farm wine did we go through?
Just over 900. So almost 1,000 bottles at Mindshare this year.
Now, this was not a one-day event. If you're listening going, oh my gosh, those lushes. It was over a matter of days. But my favorite visual is forever burned into my brain is having you walking through our black tie gala with all of those bottles of wine in your arms, serving wine. Like, it's so incredible. So you've got all of these health influencers and doctors and everyone else who are super supportive of your wine. It's completely changed my vision of wine. And let's dive in first because you've really opened up all of our eyes to the wine industry and the challenges. So what's wrong with a lot of the wine out there? What's going on?
Well, here's what's happened in a wine supply. The same thing that's happened in the food supply. And, this is even, we were just at the farmer's market a couple of days ago preparing for a dinner and then went to Whole Foods afterwards. And it was just such a stark reminder of what real food looks like, as opposed to even what, better organic food at Whole Foods looks like, right? It's just a world of difference. But what's happened in our wine supply is exactly what happened in the food supply. It's been massive corporate consolidation fueled by money and greed. Most people don't know this, but over 50% of wines manufactured in the United States are made by just 3 giant conglomerates. And the top 30 wine companies make over 70% of the wines manufactured in the United States. And I say manufacturing because these companies, which hide behind thousands and thousands of brands and labels, tens of thousands of brands and labels, to hide that where this wine and how this wine is made. These wines are really made in huge factories in Central California. And the other thing that your audience doesn't know is that there's 76 additives approved by the FDA for the use in winemaking in the United States. And the reason you don't know that is because the wine industry has spent tens of millions of dollars in lobby money to keep contents labeling off of wine bottles. So if a wine bottle, most wine bottles, nearly all, if a wine bottle had a contents label on it, it would look just like the rest of processed foods we're trying to avoid.
But just that alone makes me insane, because I know just in my shakes and bars what we have to do, and why is wine getting a pass here? I don't get it.
Well, it's called money. So it's about politicians and lobbying and greed. And so the wine industry has no interest in you knowing what is in that bottle, because what you think is in the bottle is not really what's in it. And so it's, there's some pretty nasty chemicals, many of them toxic, that are being used in winemaking. And so this is just the reality. And wine is the largest food group that does not have a contents label on it. And again, this is not an accident. I mean, this has been lobbied for labeling many times, but politically can't get done because the wine industry doesn't want labeling on wines.
Wow. So what is in there that we should be freaking out about?
Well, I mean, there's 76 additives. Some of them, ammonia phosphate as an example. There's one chemical that's used to treat the most common bacterial fault in wine, known as Brettanomyces, that is so toxic that a independent licensed applicator has to come in hazmat suits. There can't not be anybody else in the winery when this wine is treated with this poison. If you drank the wine within 24 hours of treatment, you would die, right? And the government still allows up to 200 parts per million to be remaining in the wine at the time of release. And so there are a number of these toxins that, and by the way, I just want to clarify this because I am in the wine business. I do sell wine. This is not marketing speak. Everything I'm telling you here, or your audience, can find on a Google search just by searching FDA wine additives. It's right out there. Wine industry size, this massive consolidation, it's all on the internet, right? You just search for it. I mean, I'm not sharing anything here that's not easily validated through a simple Google search.
Well, how would you know if the wine you're getting has this in it?
Well, you don't know because, again, there's no labeling, there's no transparency in the industry. Here's the thing. More than natural wines, which is what we sell, right? So natural wines are exactly what they sound. They are 100% natural, additive-free. We do independent lab testing on them. We can talk about that in a moment. But so even organic wines, all natural wines, by the way, and natural wines make up less than 0.1% of all production of wine in the world. There's only a few hundred natural winemakers in the world, and most of them are in Europe. As an example, as you might be aware, I mean, Dry Farm Wines, our company, doesn't sell any U.S., any domestic wine, any wine produced in the U.S., because there are no wines in the U.S. that meet all of our purity and health standards. So most all of our wines come from Europe and we work with a handful of producers in South Africa.
So as you know, when I first started drinking your wines, I was like being a bit of a baby because I was used to drinking these really big Napa Valley cabs. And although now you've gotten a lot of these big, bold wines, so super exciting. But the first thing I started to notice as I started to drink more and more of your wine is when I went back and drank any California wine, I felt crappy.
Yeah, it's one of the fortunate side effects of our business.
Yeah, you can't go back. It's just like pulling someone off of gluten and then going, go ahead, have that. They go, wow, I didn't realize how bad that made me feel. For years I thought, okay, I can have 1 or 2 glasses of wine, never more than that. And even at 2, I didn't feel so good. Your wine, I could have 2 or 3 glasses. I don't feel a thing, nothing. And the first time I noticed this was before I met you and I was in Europe. And I'm like, what is the difference? And I was dating a winemaker at the time in Napa. He's like, it's lower alcohol. I'm like, I don't think so. It's got to be more to it. So it's incredible because I have this damn wine fridge now with all these California wines. What do I do with them?
Give them away to your friends, or exactly, or sell them. But the crazy thing is, it's not. So his observation on lower alcohol levels is generally true, but that being said, it's not just the alcohol, and so it's a whole combination of things. It is additives. It is genetically modified commercial yeast that's grown in a lab that the wines are fermented with. Almost all commercial wines, and when I say commercial, I'm talking about 99.9% of wines in the marketplace. I'm talking about almost all wines if they're not specifically, quote, natural wines. Natural wines are fermented with wild native yeast that are indigenous to the vineyard where the grapes are grown. Commercial wines are not fermented with native yeast, wild yeast. They're fermented with lab-grown commercial yeast, oftentimes genetically modified to enhance flavor profiles. So as an example, I'll tell you why you use a commercial yeast. These native yeasts are very fragile and difficult to work with, where commercial yeast is very sturdy and less risky for the winemaker. And this is particularly important when you're making larger quantities of wine. And so the other thing, they get into genetic modifications on these yeast so you can order up right online. And when I presented at Mindshare, I showed your audience what a commercial yeast looks like. The other thing is that two other reasons that they use these commercial yeasts as opposed to the native wild yeast that are on the skin of every grape. The reason they use the commercial yeast is because it is tolerant to higher alcohol levels. These commercial yeast will tolerate 18 to 20% alcohol. A native yeast will die around 13.5% alcohol. It can't tolerate a higher alcohol environment because it's not natural for the yeast. The second thing is that these genetically modified yeast are enhanced to create specific flavor profiles, right? So let's just say you're growing grapes in Central California, but you want to make a wine that tastes like it's from Italy. You can buy yeast for that, right? And so it's just like it's just all this crazy bent science that is driven around money and greed. The other huge problem with commercial wines, and specifically United States wines, is irrigation. So, as you know, the name of our company is Dry Farm Wines, and the reason for that is because none of our wines are irrigated. In fact, it's illegal in most of It's illegal in most of Europe. It's a crime to irrigate a grapevine. And there's several reasons for that.
And what do you mean by that?
Irrigation is by giving it water. Right. So if you drive through California wine country and you look at a vine, you're going to see a little black hose that runs along the base of the vine. It's got a little tube on it that drips water and also liquid nitrogen. So that's how it gets its nutrient and its water. There's a whole bunch of problems with that. We could spend an hour talking about irrigation alone, but there's a whole bunch of problems with that. The primary problem is that it not only does it create problems with the fruit, but it also fills the reason you irrigate is to have higher yield and fruit that weighs more. When you pump fruit full of water, it weighs more, right? Fruit's sold by the ton. So you irrigate a grapevine to create more money. Grapevines have been growing for over 10,000 years all over the world without irrigation. Irrigation didn't even come to California until 1973 for a grapevine. Prior to that, all grapevines in California were also non-irrigated. But here's the problem. So a couple of things happen when you fill the berry with water, right? So one is that you dilute the antioxidant value. The polyphenols contained in the wine are diluted by the excess water, so they're less healthy. And number two, and most importantly for these alcohol levels, which in U.S. wines have been climbing steadily over the last 2 decades. So 30 years ago, U.S. wines were 12.5%, the same type of wines that we sell today. They're 14.5 to 17% alcohol. And the reason for that is that the amount of alcohol contained in the wine is going to correspond with the level of sugar that was in the grape at the time of harvest. And so what happens with an irrigated, and this will make common sense to your audience, what happens with an irrigated grape berry that's filled with water is that the sugar levels at the time of harvest have to get higher to develop proper flavor. Needs more sugar to develop proper flavor because it's diluted by this water. So the higher sugar, or bricks, is what it's known as in grape farming terms, the higher the bricks, or the sugar in the fruit at the time of picking, will correspond with the higher alcohol levels. And of course, the wine industry encourages, both as a winemaking style and as a practice, the wine industry wants alcohol levels to go up. Alcohol is addictive. And it's also a domino drug. So the more we drink, the more we're likely to drink. The wine industry wants you to drink more wine faster, right? And so alcohol is a super dangerous neurotoxin. That's the reason we only drink and sell low alcohol wines. Low alcohol doesn't mean you don't get a buzz, just the opposite.
Just means you don't get a hangover.
Just don't get a hangover. You don't get a headache while you're drinking. You don't get dumbed down. You actually get this euphoric lift and this kind of brighter expression of the positive aspects of moderate doses of alcohol.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to talk about. I never knew this about irrigation. It's stunning. Like, now I really have to get rid of all of that wine that's sitting out there that I don't know what to do with. Now I really don't know who to give it to.
Well, here's the thing. Common sense will tell you this is another really interesting thing about irrigation. Irrigation is very, very fundamental. Irrigation is the first intervention into nature's logic. Nature has this figured out. She doesn't need any help with this, right? And so it's the first intervention. But if you think about it, and this also makes, all of this is not only scientific, but it also makes common sense. So an irrigated grapevine has a root structure that's about 3 feet deep and about 2 feet in diameter, right? That's it, because it gets all of its water and nutrient from the surface in this little tube just above the trunk, just drips down. An unirrigated grapevine, a dry farmed grapevine at maturity, can have a root structure that can span 50 feet deep into the earth, right?
Wow.
And what's happening there is this struggle. These little capillary, they're like the size of a human hair, these little capillary roots, that are breaking apart mineral. And when it gets deeper, it's really into stone. Right. And this is the reason natural wines had this beautiful sort of minerality to them. Right. And so, when you first tasted our wines, you didn't fully understand them because your palate was adjusted to drinking these fruit forward, big, high alcohol wines. Right. Where you don't really taste any minerality. Right?
No, they're actually, now I appreciate all the nuances of the wine. It's like a totally different experience. And as you're saying this, here's what it reminds me of. It's the difference between corn-fed beef and grass-fed beef. They're entirely different foods. Like when you taste a grass-fed steak, it tastes totally different. Or wild salmon and farm salmon. And, everybody listening is like, I don't eat corn-fed beef. I don't eat, I wouldn't eat farmed salmon. And it's the same thing here. And it's once you get used to it, like those California wines now just taste like, there's no nuance to them. They just taste, I don't like them anymore, but it took a while.
It's just one big high alcohol fruit bomb. It's just like,
That's
people
a
would
great
say,
way to put it.
people will say, well, there's a reason why that happened. So, the foremost wine critic of the last 50 years, Robert Parker, kind of Parkerized, the whole wine industry. So he's like 300-pound type 2 diabetic, 2 canes. I mean,
Oh, wow.
but during his heyday, he was famous for drinking 5 to 6 Coca-Colas a day, right? And he had this super dead palate that we really, these types of wines appealed to him, these super strong, fruit forward kind of wines were what he favored. And he's the one who invented, the 100-point
Yes.
rating scale. Now, lots of people have copied it, but he was the originator of, 90 plus points, this, that, and the other. So wine consumers would go into a store. They don't know what to buy. Don't have any idea. They can't taste it. Don't know anything about it. Don't understand it. And so they look for these quote ratings. Well, he was the most famous one. And his style, the kind of wine that he likes to drink, which is very unhealthy, is and very big, high alcohol fruit bomb type wine. So he would give them ratings and then the price would go up. So this is how premium wines were sold.
I feel so duped, I got to tell you.
Well, obviously the winemaker and the wine owner is in the business of selling wine. So if they want to sell wine, and this still goes on today, if they want to sell wine, they need this high rating from this critic or from the Wine Spectator. They're all the same kind of thing, right? And that's how they sell wine. That's how they sell, expensive wine, is by getting these ratings, because consumers don't really know anything about wine. They don't, and certainly, as you know, have no experience with natural wines unless they follow one of the influencers or they know something about.
I'm now more in love with you than I was before, which I didn't think was possible, because what you're doing is so key critical, because, wine does have a place in a healthy diet, but not that. It's just like grass-fed beef has a place in a healthy diet, but not corn-fed. So, this information just needs to get out there big time. And what you're doing is so groundbreaking. You are changing the wine industry and you're going to force it to up level and upgrade. And I just love that. So let's just talk about the health benefits of wine. Is it really healthy? And I would assume a big part of that is going to depend on whether you're buying dry farm wine, because now that I see this, there's no other way to really know unless you're lab testing what you're really getting, right?
Right. There's absolutely, and even for sugar. So, and before we move into this health thing, I want to just comment one, because your audience will appreciate this, on the taste, right? So one of the reasons that these high alcohol, super bold, rich wines are in vogue with many Americans is because their palate is dead, right? Their palate has been killed by the overconsumption of sugar and processed foods and toxins, and their palate has been killed. And so the average American couldn't taste the difference between a corn-fed and a grass-fed beef because their palate isn't that sensitive. Now, when you start eating clean and you start detoxing away from all of these processed foods and overconsumption of sugar, your palate will come back alive and you start to taste food in a different way. Well, the same thing happens with wine, right? So you start to taste these nuances that you didn't really know were there, right? Or if you do have a clean palate like you and you had never experienced a natural wine, then you start to taste it and you're like, oh wow, this is really different. This is what real wine tastes like, right? Mm-hmm. And so what most people are drinking isn't real wine. And so that's a really important distinction. But for the health benefits, I think, there's tons and tons of studies and data out there showing that moderate doses of alcohol, and particularly red wine because of the over 800 polyphenols contained in red wine. White wine contains just over 200 polyphenols and antioxidants, but red wine contains many more because they get most of the polyphenols from contact with the skin, which is how red wine gets its color. Quick lesson in winemaking: if you squeeze the grape from a white wine grape, and if you squeeze the juice from a white wine grape and you squeeze the juice from a red wine grape, they are both clear. Red wine gets its they're both clear. Red wine gets its color from skin contact. So after the juice is pressed from the berries, it goes into a tank, and the skins from the fruit are added into the tank. That's how it gets its color. That's also why it is so much more healthy, is because these additional polyphenols, the most famous one is resveratrol. And that's how why red wine is generally recommended from a health perspective. But what's really important, really, really important when we think about alcohol consumption, and by the way, moderate alcohol consumption in studies has been shown to be healthful and lowers mortality. Doesn't matter where you get the alcohol from. What matters is how much you drink, right? So that's the reason that dosage is super important. What we like to call microdosing alcohol. This is very important because dosage is really, really too much alcohol is very unhealthy, right? Mm-hmm. A moderate dose of alcohol has been shown to be healthy. And particularly for women have to be concerned with this because excess alcohol use, particularly in women, has been shown to contribute to cancer rates. Not so for moderate doses, but how we get a moderate dose of alcohol, in my view, as a lifelong drinker, and at times I've drank more than I should before I discovered how to really manage alcohol, right? So alcohol is a slippery slope. And how I've found the best experience with moderate doses of alcohol is that the beverage I'm drinking needs to start with just a lower dose in the first place. So it needs to be inherently lower, which is why we only sell lower alcohol wines. Beer is out for a whole bunch of reasons. Most importantly, maltose sugar, a specific type of sugar that's contained in beer that goes straight to the liver and converts to fat, which is why you have these beer guts. It's also, many of them contain gluten, but now you have gluten-free beers, but they're filled with this nasty sugar. And so I'm sugar-free. In fact, you may know I'm ketogenic. I do intermittent fasting. I only eat once a day. We have all these crazy, forward-thinking health practices. And so you, I might add, I mean, you and I travel to many of the same conferences and many of the same places we end up together frequently throughout the year. And not everybody in the health business, you and I are exceptions to this. Not everybody in the health business is actually healthy, right?
Yeah, that's always a shockaroo to me when
Exactly. But as you know, when you look at me or my staff or you and your staff, we look healthy and fit, and we're walking the walk of what we're trying to help people do. And I think that's really important. But from the health point of view, I think, we could talk a long time about the health aspects of drinking wine, but rather than do that and closing up on our time here, I think the most important aspect of wine, I don't drink during the daytime, and I don't recommend that anybody else does either, for a whole bunch of different reasons. I like to be a fat burner during the daytime, and alcohol is going to stop fat burning, or any substrate energy source that can't be absorbed by the body is going to stop fat burning the moment you ingest it. And so that's just one of the reasons I don't drink during the daytime. I also don't think that it's friendly to my neurochemical regulation. But I do drink, at night. And the primary benefit from drinking wine, and the way we think about it, is that wine creates love, right? And so wine is a beautiful, poetic thing that brings more love into your life, whether that's a date night or whether that's around the table with new friends or old. We drink around the dinner table every night. I drink at least a bottle of wine a night. And remember, this is a natural low alcohol product, so I'm not having any negative remnants from that. And so, wine in the right dose and in the healthy way lowers that window of vulnerability. It makes us just a little bit more emotionally accessible, right? It makes us a little more loving. It causes us to have a bonding experience with other humans. And look, the human experience is to love and be loved, right? And so the more love we can bring into our life, the more people we can touch in a way with an attitude of service and graciousness and gratitude, and to bring love and appreciation into our life. Wine helps this, right?
I love that. And, it was interesting before I met Tim, I dated a couple guys who didn't drink wine at all. And I just was like, this isn't something I want to leave out of my life, because there's just something celebratory and connecting about, a dinner with a nice bottle of wine. And again, I think of our event we just had and our big gala night and, celebrating all of those people who won awards and you wandering around with bottles of wine, and everyone just was so happy, connected, right? Open. So I hear you. It's a really important part of my life. And I'm so happy to have found you in Dry Farm Wines. And I'm really excited because for everybody listening, we have the best introduction to Dry Farm Wines, because I will tell you, once you start to drink these wine, you won't be able to drink anything else. I mean, it's just, we actually take them to all the restaurants we go to and do corkage fees. We just won't drink other wine because we notice such a difference. First of all, we love them, but also we notice the difference in how we feel is dramatic. And I want wine for the health benefits and also what you just talked about, the connection benefits and the relaxation benefits, but I don't want to have the hurt with it. So for everyone listening, you're going to get a chance to get your first bottle for a penny when you go to jjvirgin.com/dry farm wines. And you, my friend, are just the most generous, giving, kind person on the planet. And I love your mission out here with wine. It's just huge and so important.
Thank you. We're so appreciative of our friendship with you and your team and Mindshare. And it's you have this wonderful summit every year, and it's our, we brought 11 or 12 people this year.
Great dancers too. You brought Anthony.
Yeah. we have some dancers on board, but we like to bring the party and share the love and share the bottle.
You definitely do that. Just for everybody listening, Todd and his team were at my wedding. They were pouring wine at the wedding. That is like, there was no other wine I wanted to have at my wedding. So they actually came in, brought the wine, brought the dancers, brought the party. And I didn't know Anthony yet. And I literally was like, is there a party crasher here? Like, who's this? We got a wedding crasher at the party, but let's keep him. He's fun. So it's just great. All your people are, though. They just resent me. It's like when the owners have a clear mission and are kind and generous and are in this to give and change the world, guess what? Everybody else on their team is the same. And you guys are just incredible. So again, everybody listening, you have an amazing opportunity. Go to jjvirgin.com/dry farm wines. And that's Dry Farm Wines. You will never, ever, ever try another bottle of wine once you've done this, and you get your first bottle for a penny. So make sure you take advantage of that. And I hugely appreciate you taking your time out with me today, and for everything that you do for all of my events and my daily enjoyment of life.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It was a great time.
All right. Now, stay with me, because after the break, I'm going to be answering a listener's question.
Fact. The true cause of weight gain is not calories. It's food intolerance. A negative reaction to certain foods, even foods you thought were healthy, can lead to a variety of symptoms, including weight gain, acne, bloating, and lack of energy. The solution is simple. Avoid the foods your body doesn't tolerate. But which foods? That's the secret JJ reveals in her book, The Virgin Diet. Drop 7 foods, lose 7 pounds, just 7 days. Discover the sneaky 7 foods by visiting jjvirgin.com/books and be on your way to losing 7 pounds in 7 days.
Welcome back. This is the time where I answer a listener's question. And here's what I do. I jump on Instagram and Facebook. Now, I'm always looking at comments and reading what people are saying. And I also read my direct messages on Instagram. So if you're trying to get me, I check those out too. And then, of course, on my Instagram and Facebook Lives, which I do every week, usually a couple times a week, I'm always looking at what people are asking. So, and grabbing those questions that are perfect for the podcast. It's interesting because I get asked about alcohol all the time. So this one, when I knew I could talk with Todd, I was like, perfect, because this is a question I get asked all the time. But I was just on the other day doing a live, and the question came from Kara of, all right, so what should I be drinking and how much? And let's lay it out. Kara, and I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. I loved what Todd said about not drinking during the day, and I think that is a critical one. I don't know about you, but if I have a drink during the day, which occasionally I'm on vacation, I'm like, this is a great idea. Everybody else is sitting out by the pool having a drink. I should do this too. And I guess if I don't want to do anything at all the rest of the day, maybe. But what I found is that just kind of ends the day for me. Then I want to go take a nap, and now I've disrupted my sleep cycle and blah, blah, blah. So I don't drink during the day. It doesn't make me feel good. Blah. So that's the first thing, is it's something that I do at night. I don't do it every night. I do think that, if we're cooking a great dinner, if we've got friends over, if we're going out, that's where I use wine. To me, it's a great part of a wonderful dinner, great time with friends. It's part of connecting and celebrating. And I just love that whole thing. I pretty much stick to 1 to 2 glasses of wine. And I literally now rarely drink anything but dry farm, because I just noticed a big difference. I had some California wine the other day at a restaurant and felt like absolute crap the next day. I literally thought I had the flu when I woke up in the morning. And it's very similar to when you pull gluten and dairy out of your diet and then go back and try them, and you go, wow, I had no idea how crappy I felt. So I have noticed from switching over that I don't feel crappy, that I don't have any weight issues with it. Sometimes if I've gotten too into drinking wine, I'm like, wow, what's happening here? So now I don't make it a practice every single night, though. I, again, keep it to when we're doing a special dinner. So a couple times a week, friends over, going out. So that's the first part. And I keep myself to 1 to 2 glasses of wine. There is an exception, like when we were having our big Mindshare events, and, I might have an event going from, say, 5 p.m. till 11 p.m. Well, luckily I'm on the dance floor most of the time, but I'll probably have 3 glasses then, because it's over the course of a long period of time. But I have a lot of water in between. And that's kind of my rule, is 1 glass of wine, 2 glasses of water, 1 glass of wine, 2 glasses of water. Now, beyond wine, and I pretty much stick to red wine, although Dry Farm Wine has this sparkling. They're the only sparkling wines I'll touch, because the other ones are just sugar bombs. But they have a rosé sparkling that's insane. If I'm going to drink anything else, it's only tequila. And I especially love my favorite tequila drink. Shout out to Cavita. Cavita Mojito Lime plus tequila plus a little sparkling water and a little slice of fresh lime is amazing. But again, I want you to think of, if you have an issue with alcohol, this is not go ahead, drink. Nope, that's not it. If you're not drinking, I wouldn't say go start. But if you are someone who likes to enjoy their wine, this is a great, great option for you. And again, once you switch over to Dry Farm, you aren't going back. I can promise. All right. Thank you for that one, Kara. And another big shout out here. I love these reviews. I got to tell you, the whole team reads our iTunes reviews. They mean so much to us. So just in case you left one and go, no one's reading. Oh, believe me, we all read them. And if you haven't left one yet and you feel so inclined, boy, would we appreciate you leaving a review over there. It just means the world to us. This one's from Chiara Perry, and it's, thanks for a great show, 5 stars. Week after week, JJ puts together great content on the health and wellness journey. I recommend the show all of the time. Thanks for what you're doing to help us be the best versions of ourselves. Thank you so much for that. And, I also want to tell you, if there's stuff you want to hear more about, let me know, because that's how we put these things together. I'm working on some new stuff for the show. Stay tuned. So we're working on bringing in a little bit more of me doing some little special segments and more guests. So I'd love to know what you'd like to know more about. And thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for leaving a review, and I will see you next week.
That's all for this episode of the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show, which marks another step towards a healthier body and mind. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and we'll talk to you next week.